I'm Jenna, and let me tell you, my life's no fairy tale, but it's mine. Married to Jack for 9 solid years, best years of my life, honestly. He's a keeper, works like a dog, all loyal and smart. We met back in college, hit it off over a cold pizza at some midnight cram session and haven't stopped yapping since. We tried, for kids. But life's got a funny way of throwing your plans back in your face. Every month, hope would build up like a balloon and burst just as fast. Jack's boss? That's Tom, my big bro used to be my hero when we were kids. Always had my back. Then he went and married Lisa, and let's just say, she ain't exactly warmed my heart. She's this tall drink of water, looks like she stepped out of a magazine and never misses a chance to remind you. They had this big, fancy wedding, all glitter and loud music, not really my cup of tea. I like things simple, Give me a good book, a quiet room, I'm set. Lisa, though, she's got to live it up like every day's her last. Fancy clothes, parties every other night, and never without that high-heeled click-clacking across the floor. I remember the first time I met her. It was at Tom's place, a few days before their wedding. The house was packed with her friends, all loud and flashy like a TV show. I walked in, and there she was, center of it all, laughing like she owned the world. "Jenna, right?" she said, eyeing my simple dress like it was made of sackcloth. "Tom's little sister." He said, "You're a teacher?" "Yeah, that's me. High school English," I replied, trying to sound chipper. She gave me this smile, all teeth and no warmth. "Adorable. Must be nice, playing with kids all day, right?" Her friends giggled, sipping their fancy drinks, and I just nodded, feeling about as welcome as a skunk at a lawn party. Tom was all smiles, though, clueless to the chill. "Hey, Jen, glad you could make it. Lisa's just dying to get to know you better." "Sure, Tom. If by dying you mean barely tolerating. But he's my brother, what was I gonna do?" I plastered on a smile and mingled, kept out of Lisa's way best I could. When my phone rang that afternoon, and I saw it was Lisa, my heart sank. She had this way of calling with demands wrapped up like invitations. "Hey, Lisa. What's up?" "Jenna, darling. We're having a little soiree this Saturday. You should come over, it'll be fun." Her voice was all sugar, but I could hear the steel underneath. I hesitated. Parties aren't really my thing, Lisa." Her tone shifted, colder now. "Well, I wasn't inviting you as a guest, Jenna. I need you to help out. Serve drinks, clean up, that sort of thing." My jaw clenched. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Tom's away, and I can't manage on my own. You'll be helping your brother out, too, in a way." I wanted to say no, tell her to hire someone if she needed help that badly, but the threat was clear. Lisa knew how to play her cards, knew that with Tom not around, she could push harder. "Fine, Lisa. I'll be there." The call ended, and I tossed my phone on the bed, frustration boiling inside me. Jack watched me, frowning. What did Lisa want now? I sighed, shaking my head. She's throwing a party and wants me to help, serve drinks, clean up, the works. That's not fair, Jenna. You're her sister-in-law, not her servant. I know, but she made it clear that if I don't help, it could come back to bite you. I can't risk your job over this. The day of the party arrived all too soon. I showed up at Lisa's house right on time, dressed in a simple black outfit, not too fancy, but good enough to not embarrass myself. The house was already buzzing with activity, preparations in full swing. Lisa greeted me with a smirk. "There you are. You can start by helping in the kitchen. Drinks need to be prepared." The kitchen was a flurry of activity, and I got to work, setting up trays of drinks, cutting lemons, getting everything ready for the guests who would soon be arriving. As the party started, I found myself weaving through groups of Lisa's friends, offering drinks, and cleaning up used plates and glasses. Lisa watched me from a distance, a satisfied smile playing on her lips whenever our eyes met. Halfway through the evening, as I was collecting empty glasses, Lisa cornered me in the kitchen. "You're doing a good job, Jenna. Maybe you should consider a career in catering." I gritted my teeth, washing another glass a bit more forcefully than necessary. "I love my job, Lisa. I'm here tonight because you asked." Lisa leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Let's keep it friendly, Jenna. We wouldn't want any family conflicts, would we? Especially not with Tom away." The threat was veiled, but clear. I nodded stiffly, returning to my tasks. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of fetching, carrying, and cleaning. By the end of the night, my back ached, and my feet were sore. As the last guests left, Lisa found me by the door, picking up discarded coats. "Thanks, Jenna. You really saved the day." Her gratitude sounded hollow to my ears. I just nodded, too tired to argue. "I did what you asked, Lisa. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to get home." She smiled, but her eyes were cold. "Of course, Jenna. We'll see you at the next one, won't we?" The weeks rolled by, and every weekend was the same story. Lisa's lavish parties became a regular thing, especially when Tom was out on those never-ending business trips. I spent my Saturdays setting up and my Sundays cleaning up. It was like clockwork, only without any of the precision or satisfaction. Watching Lisa at these parties was another kind of torture. She'd flutter around, laughing too loud with men who weren't her husband, and each laugh felt like a jab at my patience. One night, things got worse than usual. As I was picking up yet another tray of discarded appetizers and empty glasses, Lisa sauntered over, a wicked grin plastered on her too-perfect face. "Jenna, darling, you missed a spot over there. And be a dear, refill my friend's drinks, would you?" she said, her voice dripping with a condescension that made my skin crawl. I looked down at the tray in my hands, then back at her, and something in me just snapped. I couldn't take another second of her demeaning tone. Without thinking, I dropped the tray I was holding right in front of her feet, the clatter echoing louder in my ears than probably necessary. "I'm not your servant, Lisa. I'm done," I declared, my voice steady, despite the storm raging inside me. Her face turned an interesting shade of red, her eyes narrowing into slits. "Oh, Jenna, you just made a big mistake. You think you can just stop helping and there won't be consequences? Watch your back, and maybe your husband's job while you're at it. Remember your place." But I was already turning away, untying my apron as I went. "Find someone else to clean up your messes," I called over my shoulder, not caring any more about the consequences. The drive home was a blur. I was so wound up with anger and relief, it was hard to focus on anything else. Closer to home, I calmed down, and a cold fear replaced the anger. What had I done? The next evening, Jack came home, his face ashen, his hands shaking. "Jenna, Tom, he yelled at me today. In front of everyone. Called me incompetent. Said I was a liability." My heart sank. Lisa wasn't just making empty threats. "It's going to be okay, Jack. We'll figure this out," I said, though I felt anything but certain. No sooner had I reassured him than my phone rang again. "Lisa." Part of me wanted to hurl the phone against the wall, but I answered. "Feeling the heat yet, Jenna?" Lisa's voice was smug, victorious. "That was just a taste. Keep defying me, and Jack's next performance review could be his last." I squeezed the phone, my knuckles white. "What do you want, Lisa?" "It's simple. Get back to your duties, and Jack stays safe. Keep up your little rebellion, and watch his career, and yours, crumble." I ended the call, feeling trapped. I couldn't tell Jack, it would crush him. But going back to that house, bending to Lisa's whims, it went against every fiber of my being. I was stuck, caught between my pride and my fear for Jack's future. Tom came back from his long trip all smiles and dropped a bombshell that turned everything even more upside down. "Jenna, I've got great news. Lisa's pregnant." His eyes were shining with pure joy, the kind that should have been contagious, but all I felt was a sinking feeling in my gut. That's wonderful, Tom," I managed to say, pasting on the most genuine smile I could muster. Inside, doubts were swirling because I knew Lisa hadn't been a saint, especially not with how she acted at those endless parties. As the weeks rolled on, Lisa's pregnancy became the new focus of her life, and by extension, mine. Morning sickness hit her hard, and somehow, I ended up being the one running around, doing all the chores for her while Tom was blissfully unaware of the real dynamics in his house. One afternoon, as I was chopping vegetables for dinner, Lisa waltzed into the kitchen, a sour look on her face. "Ugh, I can't stand the smell of food. Why do you have to cook such disgusting things, Jenna?" I clenched my teeth, keeping my focus on the carrots instead of her taunts. "Lisa, if you'd like something else, just let me know what you want. I'm trying to make things you can stomach." She scoffed, leaning against the counter with a hand on her belly. "Whatever. It's not like you'd understand what it's like, being pregnant and all. You just play house without a clue about real motherhood." Every visit was the same. Lisa found new ways to dig at me, her remarks slicing deeper each time. And Tom, bless him, was too caught up in his soon-to-be father glow to notice. He thought I was helping, because I was just that nice. One evening, as I was tidying up the living room, Tom caught me off guard. "Jenna, I really can't thank you enough for all you're doing. Lisa tells me how helpful you've been. We're so lucky to have you." I forced a smile, my heart aching with the need to tell him the truth, to spill everything about Lisa's cruelty. But I held back, knowing it would only hurt him. "It's no problem, Tom. I'm happy to help out." As I left their house that night, Lisa's parting shot was a whisper, just loud enough for me to hear. "Keep playing the martyr, Jenna. It suits you, since that's all you're good for." Night after night, I cried myself to sleep, the barbs from Lisa embedding themselves deep. But every morning, I'd wipe my tears, square my shoulders, and prepare myself for another day of battle. It was a cycle of pain and pretense, and with each passing day, my resolve wore a little thinner. Lisa's delivery day came sooner than anyone expected. "He's a bit premature," she announced over the phone, but her voice lacked the warmth you'd expect from a new mother. When I first saw the baby, he didn't seem premature at all. He was a healthy, crying bundle, looking right on time to me. But who was I to argue? Tom was over the moon, oblivious to Lisa's detachment. "We're naming him George, after our granddad," he beamed, cradling his son with a pride that lit up the room. I smiled back, genuinely happy for my brother even though my heart ached with a mix of joy for him and sorrow for my own unfulfilled dreams. Lisa's approach to motherhood was anything but warm. As soon as she got home, she was obsessed with getting back into her pre-pregnancy clothes and resuming her social life. She wasted no time shifting all baby duties onto me. "You don't mind, do you, Jenna? This is probably the closest you'll ever get to being a mom," she'd say, her voice dripping with a cruelty that she thought was humorous. Her words were like daggers, but I swallowed the hurt. I couldn't let it show. Jack and I ended up taking care of George more and more. It wasn't long before we grew attached. Holding him, feeding him, even changing his diapers felt like blessings in their own exhausting, beautiful way. Every time Tom left town, which was often, her parenting switched off. Lisa dropped George at our place with barely a goodbye, dressed up and ready to party. "Take good care of him. Mommy's got to unwind," she'd chirp, kissing George on the forehead with practiced affection before heading out the door. The situation reached a new low one evening when Lisa came to pick George up after one of her nights out. She reeked of alcohol, her makeup smeared. She scooped up George, who whimpered at the sudden movement. "You're such a saint, Jenna. Really, I don't know what we'd do without you," she slurred, her words laced with sarcasm. I bit my tongue, holding the door for her. "Just making sure he's safe, Lisa." Sure. Safe with Auntie Jenna," she laughed, stumbling slightly as she walked to her car. Watching her drive off, my heart raced with worry for both Lisa and the baby. So, we continued in this painful routine, providing a makeshift home for a child that wasn't ours, while his mother lived as if she was still childless. Each time Lisa fetched George, leaving behind a house that felt too empty without his giggles and cries, I felt a pang of loss. It wasn't right, none of it. But there was little we could do but hope and wait for something to change. A couple of months later, Jack and I moved to a new place, a bigger apartment, closer to the school where I teach. It was a fresh start, or so we thought. We were still unpacking, boxes everywhere, when my phone rang. Lisa's name flashed on the screen, sending a familiar jolt of stress through me. "Hey, Lisa. What's up?" I tried to keep my voice neutral. "Jenna, I've left George with you for the weekend. I'm off to Milan for a sail. Couldn't miss it." Her voice was breezy, like she was talking about dropping off a borrowed book, not her child. I froze, a box half unpacked in my hands. "What do you mean you've left George? Where?" "At your place, silly." I rang the bell, but no one answered. "He's in his car seat, outside the front door," she replied, her tone turning impatient. I felt the blood drain from my face. "Lisa, we moved. We're not at that address anymore." "What?" The panic in her voice mirrored the pounding of my heart. "You moved? Why didn't you tell me?" "Jenna, you have to go get him. Now." I hung up without another word, grabbed my keys, and told Jack I had to go back to our old apartment. The drive felt like the longest of my life, each red light a torturous pause in my rush to ensure George was safe. Pulling up to the old place, my worst fears weren't realized, thank goodness. There he was, just as Lisa said, asleep in his car seat, abandoned at the doorstep of a now empty apartment. Relief washed over me, quickly replaced by a surge of anger so intense it shook me. I scooped George up, checking him over for signs of distress. Thankfully, he was just fine, oblivious to the chaos. Driving back to our new apartment, I tried to calm my racing thoughts. How could she be so careless? So reckless with her own child? Once home, I set George up in the spare room, still shaking. I called Lisa back, my voice cold and steady from resolve. "He's not there, Lisa. I don't know where your child is." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, frantic, "What do you mean? Jenna, this isn't funny. Where's my son?" "Come back and look for him yourself," I snapped, the lie bitter on my tongue. "And don't call me until you're back in the country." I hung up, my hand trembling, and dialed Tom's number. He answered on the second ring, his voice tired and distant. "Tom, you need to come home. It's urgent," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "What's happened? Is it Lisa? George?" His voice was suddenly alert, laced with concern. "It's about George. Please, just come home as soon as you can," I insisted, feeling the weight of everything bearing down on me. "All right, I'm booking the next flight out. Hang tight, Jenna," he said before hanging up. I sat down, finally allowing myself a moment to breathe. George, now safely playing with some toys on the floor, looked up at me with innocent eyes. My heart ached for him, caught up in the mess his mother had made. Jack came over and put an arm around me, his presence a comforting weight. The morning was tense. Tom arrived looking haggard, having flown straight from the airport. Without wasting a moment, I led him to the living room where little George was playing quietly. "Tom, we need to talk," I began, my voice steady, despite the turmoil inside. "Lisa left George at our old doorstep before flying off to Italy. She didn't know we moved." Tom's face drained of color, his eyes widening in shock. "What? She left him alone? Outside?" "Yes, but there's more." I handed him the envelope containing the DNA test results I had secretly obtained a month ago, suspecting Lisa's fidelity. "Tom, I'm so sorry, but you need to see this." He opened the envelope with trembling hands. As he read the contents, his complexion turned a ghostly white, and he looked up at me, agony and disbelief etched across his features. Just then, the doorbell rang. I glanced at Tom, signaling him to stay with George in the next room, and went to answer the door. It was Lisa, her face a mask of fury and panic. She barged past me, her eyes wild. Where is he? What have you done with my baby? I didn't find him, Lisa, I replied, blocking her way further into the apartment. She thrust her phone at me. Call Tom. Tell him you lost George. Tell him it was all your fault, or I swear, Jenna, I'll ruin your husband's career. I'll make sure Tom fires Jack. I stood firm, locking eyes with her. No, Lisa. I'm not afraid of you anymore. And there's something you should know, I'm aware of your affairs. Tom isn't George's father. Her laugh was bitter, laced with contempt. You think Tom will believe you over me? He's nothing without me. I control everything. And who's going to believe a barren woman like you? At that moment, Tom stepped back into the room, George cradled in his arms, the DNA test results in his hand. Lisa's face fell as she saw him, her confident demeanor crumbling. Tom's voice was low but filled with an icy fury. Lisa, this is over. I've seen the DNA test. You've been lying to me, to all of us. I'm filing for divorce, and I'll be seeking full custody of George. Desperation took hold of Lisa as she fell to her knees, grabbing at Tom's feet. Tom, please, I made a mistake. Forgive me. I can change. Tom stepped back, his expression hardening. I can't respect someone who abandons their child. You're also going to face legal consequences for your actions. He gently put George down, who clung to my leg, watching the scene unfold with wide, scared eyes. Tom turned back to Lisa. You need to leave. Now. Lisa's pleas turned into sobs as she realized the finality in Tom's voice. Her makeup smeared as she cried, her figure a stark contrast to the poised, controlled person she always pretended to be. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, but I had no sympathy left to give. After the storm that was Lisa's departure and the revealing of all her lies, the days began to settle into a new kind of normal. Tom went through with the divorce, and it was messy for a bit. The court didn't look kindly on her actions, abandoning her child and cheating. They left her with nothing of Tom's, and even slapped her with a hefty penalty to pay him. The guardianship service stripped her of her parental rights after what she pulled, leaving little George legally free from her. During this time, I visited Tom a lot, helping him adjust to life as a single dad. He was grateful, always thanking me for stepping in, but I could see the struggle in his eyes. One evening, after I'd put George to bed and Tom and I sat sipping tea, he dropped a bombshell. Jen, I need to talk to you about something serious. I nodded, pushing my tea aside. What's on your mind? It's about George. I've tried, I really have. But every time I look at him, I see her and what she did. It's eating me up, Jen. His voice cracked, and he looked away, ashamed. I reached over and squeezed his hand. It's okay to feel that way. You've been through a lot. He shook his head, his eyes moist. No, it's not okay. He's an innocent kid. He shouldn't have to suffer because I can't get past this. I've been thinking, maybe there's a better option for him. My heart skipped a beat. What are you saying, Tom? I'm saying that maybe George would be better off with someone who can give him a real family, without the baggage. Like you and Jack. The idea took my breath away. Jack and I had come to love George as if he were our own, but this was a big step. Are you sure about this, Tom? He's your family. Tom wiped his eyes, nodding slowly. I know. And I love him. But I love him enough to want what's best for him. I think you and Jack could be what's best. I didn't say yes right away. Jack and I spent a long night talking it over. It wasn't a decision to make lightly, but in our hearts, we both felt the same. The next day, I went back to Tom. We'll do it, I said, my voice steady. We'll adopt George. Tom's relief was palpable. He hugged me tight, whispering thanks. The adoption process wasn't instantaneous, but it moved faster given the circumstances and with Tom's full support. Now, months later, our apartment is lively with the sounds of a family, a real family. Jack and I, we couldn't have kids of our own, but that didn't matter anymore. George filled that void in ways we never expected. He calls me Mom and Jack Dad, and every time he does, my heart swells with a joy I can't describe. Weekends are the best times. We play in the park, we have movie nights, we cook together. The laughter and love echo through the rooms of our home, drowning out any echoes of the pain from the past.